In 1916, on the deck of a troopship leaving Australia, two young soldiers excitedly wrote their first letters home. They rolled the notes up, slipped them into a glass bottle, and tossed it into the sea. One letter was written to a mother. The other was addressed to whoever would find it. But one of the two men never made it back. The letter to his mother never reached her hands. More than 100 years later, on an Australian beach, by some miracle, those two letters suddenly washed ashore and found their way back to the soldiers' families. 109 years lost. A fallen soldier's letter to his mother finally came home. It was an ordinary morning on the beautiful Wharton Beach in Western Australia. But for Deborah Brown and her family, it became an unforgettable, life-changing moment. While picking up trash along the shoreline, she spotted an old glass bottle half buried in the sand. Inside were two tightly rolled pieces of paper. Little did she know, those two bottles contained letters written more than a century earlier by two soldiers who fought in World War I. Mrs. Deborah Brown recalled that when she picked up the bottle, there was still a bit of seawater trapped inside. To avoid damaging the letters, she carefully removed the cork and gently used tweezers to pull out the two-page note. She then let everything dry naturally by the window. One oceanography expert believes the letters could have spent more than a century buried in the sand. Dunes, it's thought extensive erosion by recent winter storms dislodged the bottle. She explained that the letter was dated August 15, 1916, written by two Australian privates, Malcolm Alexander Neville, 27 years old, and William Harley, 37 years old. They wrote it shortly after leaving Adelaide on August 12, 1916, as they were being sent to reinforce an Australian infantry battalion fighting in Europe. The letter was written in pencil, rolled tightly, and placed inside a Schweppes soft drink bottle. Ocean currents eventually carried it ashore near the town of Esperance. In the letter, Private Neville wrote a few optimistic lines to his mother. "Everything is just fine, Mom. The food is good, except for one meal we had to bury under the sea." He then mentioned the troopship that had left Adelaide 3 days earlier, full of excitement. "Our ship is rocking in the waves, but everyone is very happy. I love you very much. Your son Malcolm, somewhere on the high seas. If anyone finds this bottle, please send the letter to my mother in the small town of Wilkawat, South Australia." The journey to find the family behind the letter. Deeply moved by what she had found, Deborah was determined to fulfill the soldier's wish and deliver his letters. She searched for Neville on the Australian War Memorial website and located his record. However, reuniting the family proved difficult. She said, since he never returned and never married, there was almost no other information about him online. Undeterred, she continued searching for Neville's mother in Wilkawat and eventually traced the third-generation nephew of Private Malcolm, Mr. Herbie Neville, who now lives in Alice Springs. Deborah called Herbie's workplace using contact information from Facebook. A few days later, he responded. When the family heard about the letter, they were overwhelmed with emotion. Herbie shared with ABC that it was an unbelievable experience for his family. His aunt, Marion Davies, now 101 years old, often spoke about Uncle Malcolm and how he never came back from the war. Mr. Bryce Abraham, who worked at the Australian War Memorial while reviewing archive documents, explained that Private Neville was a farmer, only about 5 feet 2 inches tall, but extremely determined and patriotic. Due to poor health and weak eyesight, he was rejected for enlistment multiple times, but he refused to give up. With help from a captain, he was accepted into the Logistics Corps and later transferred to the 48th Infantry Battalion. Mr. Abraham shared, "Not everyone has that kind of resolve. He really wanted to contribute to his country." After 6 weeks aboard the troopship Ballarat, Neville arrived in England in September 1916, then went to France in December. Just 2 months later, he was killed in action at the Battle of Bullecourt on April 11, 1917. The battle was described as extremely brutal, with nearly half the battalion becoming casualties. Neville was later buried in a cemetery in London, England, and was one of 4 members of his wider family who lost their lives during World War I. The second letter, The Man Who Survived. The second letter was written by Private William Kirk Harley. He was fortunate enough to survive the war and return home. For his granddaughter and Turner, discovering the letter felt like a miracle. She said, "We were all absolutely stunned. There are still 5 of his grandchildren alive today." Mrs. Turner was deeply moved to see that Private Neville had written to his mother, while Mr. Harley, having lost his own mother long before, wrote only to whoever would find a bottle. At the same time, she noted that the letter served as a powerful reminder of the optimism these soldiers carried as they headed off to war. She said, "I think he must have been thrilled to finally be going to the front, and I believe that's why he was so upbeat. I feel very emotional seeing that young man had a mother to write to, and the message in the bottle was for her, while our grandfather had already lost his mother long ago, so he wrote to whoever found the bottle." Deborah Brown, the woman who helped reunite the letters with their families, was also deeply touched. She said, "This poor young man went off without knowing what he was about to face, and he seems quite cheerful in the letter." According to the Australian War Memorial, this is the 4th message in a bottle ever discovered between Adelaide and Perth, where many soldiers released letters into the sea during their 1916 voyage to Europe. Mr. Abraham believes that writing letters and keeping diaries was how soldiers passed the time and stayed positive during the long sea journey. They all understood the brutal reality of war. No one still believed going to the front was an adventure. If you find this story meaningful and touching, please share it so more people can learn about the miraculous journey of these messages in bottles.